But I hope that just seeing how you can lay out your work, how you can record bits of this and that can really work. Hello everyone. I am back with another flip through. I did a previous video, which was journal 1 in this series of flip throughs. And these begin with the journals from my 50 before 50 year project. And that was a project I did tracking the year before I turned 50. So I was tracking things that I wanted to do in that year. I had a checklist and things that were happening and going on, and then a self-portrait every week. And this is actually journal 3, and I'm going to show that. There are 4 of these journals so far, but I just wanted to show the kind of journal first. This is a moleskine, but it is not a classic or a traditional moleskine. It is the Moleskine Art series. It comes with a purple label. It is not the watercolor one. It's the other one. It can be very confusing to find the right one. I've gotten tripped up recently looking at them, but it has a very thick paper that has worked out really well for the way I use ink and lots of fountain pen ink. So I'm going to go through number 2, sketchbook 2. And this is a process that I have continued, and the format has continued to evolve throughout the 4 journals so far. And I continue to work on this as I do a project called Illustrate Your Week, where I do prompts for ways to fill out a spread of notes, tidbits, quotes, drawings, illustrations, whatever you could glue in ephemera or whatever your style is to record your week. And when I looked back through this one, I was just transported back into these moments and the things that I captured. Again, the point is not to read every note that I've made. Your journals are private and they're private spaces. But I hope that just seeing how you can lay out your work, how you can record bits of this and that and all different styles and all different colors or inks or paint, whatever it is you like to use, can really work. So this starts week 35 of year 50 before 50 for me. After that year, I started numbering my spreads by the calendar year, by the week of the calendar year. But back here, I was still in the full year, the first year, and I was tracking by week. So it was week 35, February 16. And if you think about that, February 16, 2020 was right before the pandemic started. So this book is right smack in that. And the next journal, journal 3, continues in that year as the pandemic continued to unfold for me personally and in my house. But this one has the first few months of the pandemic, and those things end up recorded in here. So if you are super sensitive to that, you should know that. So week 35, bits of portraits. There are always some people I don't know, some people I do, family members, graphic novel panels, quotes. Happiness is like a butterfly. The more you chase it, the more it will evade you. But if you notice other things around you, it will gently come and sit on your shoulder. Henry David Thoreau. I love to have quotes sprinkled in, sort of like a commonplace book where you gather and collect quotes. Sometimes they're just written in like this, and sometimes they're lettered more elaborately or in a block letter format that I really enjoy doing. I hope that this just inspires you to see that you can combine these little bits of your days. This is simply the design on the back of a deck of playing cards that my son bought. And there's all these little bitty notes, and I like to fill it all in really densely. That's kind of me. Sometimes it's just about putting in a word. Sometimes there are lots of notes. Self-portrait. Self-portraits were once a week during the 50 before 50 year. I continued that for year 2, and I am now doing that for year 3. And I try to note, this is week 35 self-portrait, and it can be small, it can be big, it can be really simple, it can be elaborate. There's a lot of hatching here. Clearly, sometimes this is so mindful for me to do. This is something I saw on a walk, and it turned out to be part of a podcast after that. It was a really important thing for me to see. Something sitting around the house or something you see. This says in window of corner store. I snapped a picture of something that I saw. someone I saw in a used bookstore, and that was something on my list. And I talked about what that experience was like. And self-portrait. Some of these have a lot of space. Sometimes I think I'll get back to it in the week, and I don't always. This is the kind of spread I love. There are more and more spreads like this maybe in this journal and in the next two. And I find that week to week, I'm really flexible. I just kind of go with it. But when I end up with these kinds of spreads, they typically are ones that have the most resonance for me. This format, lots of graphic novel look and feel. And this page particularly, a lot of different inks being used. That's important to me. This is actually a magazine clipping, an image from a magazine. I was trying to figure out if someone sent me this photo. This is a magazine clipping. This is something that recurs in this journal and then throughout. From this point on, I was doing lots of this kind of work, mindfulness, mark making, filling spaces, circles or squares or any kind of space, sometimes filling in just the spaces around something. But this has become incredibly important for me. And it may seem super simple, and it is super simple. Anyone can fill a circle with different marks. But the process of it and what it offers me is very important. And I came to appreciate that through these pages. And it also lets me use lots of fun ink. And they're just pretty. They're pretty as fill-in. Lots of things. Obviously, here we go with coronavirus. This is really where March 1, and getting these was tough. Self-portrait. Pages like this is another good example, a page that always sticks with me. There is a bit of smudging here, some of this ink smudged between pages. Later, not in this journal, but later I started putting pages in between, but there's definitely some smudging. This happened when I erased. I ended up not liking this ink, but I still like the page. It's fine. It's fine for what it is. Some regular mark making, just different bits all woven together. This is what was happening in the news. This is the soup I made that week. Self-portrait. We had to go and clear out a dorm room, little bits and pieces. And some of this all goes in with the mood of what was happening. I intended to go back and fill this in. Oftentimes that's true. There's lots of space and I think I'll get to it. And I don't, and I just move on. These are not finished pieces that will hang on a wall. It's just my safe space to go each day and draw, play with color, play with line, and record my life. The documentation is important. This is documentation. That's what this is. This is documentation of food. Random drawings and a portrait from Sketchy. Here I drew out some boxes that I could fill in, and I just didn't end up finishing it, and that's okay. Self-portrait, some of them are large, some of them are small. Partly in some of these drawings in the CMP group that year and during this time period, I was posting for a while daily, and then at some point I shifted to weekly, but drawing pics from Sketchy especially, and assorted things. I think that's what this is. Inspiration for people who wanted to draw and wanted to be sort of drawing in community, drawing the same things. Some of these things is definitely experimental, different for me, this layering. I really enjoy and like this portrait. I like how all this works, the layering of text and image. And these numbers recurred for a very long time until it became hard to track them. So the journal continues that way. The numbers, every day I was trying to write the number in. Just a note that's in here that I want to leave in place. Portrait, lots of things, and something spilled here. You can see it happens in a journal. Sometimes it's just really black and white. But still a whole lot is in here. If I go back and read through it, there's a lot of notes there. Portraits, again, these numbers continued to increase, lots of notes. I did a whole stint of contours, really loose, just take a pen, draw what I see, trying to do one line even in some cases, and really loved the look, and it fit in here. It had a purpose. That's what this page is. some notes and a spice jar and a whole page of contour. And then here I set myself up to do some daily pattern fills. I did it for a little while. Lots of contour here. And again, these notes, you can feel how all this goes together. These numbers every single day increasing like this. And something about these pages, I understand it. I think it was endemic in its own way to what was going on. Again, lots of notes and lots of contour. Even the self-portrait was very simple line, very simple contour. No fill-in, no detail. It's flat. It's simple line and it's flat and easy. And this, I did a whole bunch of these. It was really important to me. Something on my list I couldn't do. And I started doing that. I rewatched the whole Harry Potter series and I took a bunch of notes like this. I took a lot of these notes on another piece of paper, intending to put them all in. More contour, more notes. Another one of these. And another one. Lots of contour. This continued for a few weeks, and these numbers kept continuing too. And I'm so glad I tracked this way. It has real meaning to me now to see it. The way these portraits speak to each other and to the text, that always matters to me. Documenting things in graphic novel form, that's really important to me. It's something I continue to push at. It doesn't come as easily to me to draw the characters or body positions, but I really keep working at it. And then more contour. Really, really, really continued with this format. This has a lot of stuff happening. There's a portrait, there's a flower, there's one of these again, there's some words, some notes. A lot can get tucked into your pages this way. This one with the portrait and this portrait facing and this puffin behind. I really love these pages still. It doesn't feel like the way I typically work, but it really played a role. We have portrait here and look at this, fish. And again, flowers. I was pairing flowers and portraits for some of the Draw With Me selections in the group. And I had on my list to draw a set of coffee mugs. And I intended to, I think, paint them. I thought maybe I would explore gouache. I thought I would do something different. I thought in this year, in this book, I would move into something different. I did not know the pandemic was coming. And then something happened on Instagram, something like top 9 mugs or something like that, hashtag top 9 mugs, something like that. And everyone started posting these beautiful photos of their mug collections. And then a lot of creative people started painting them. And I still had this simple thing on my list and it became sort of something rebellious. I just couldn't do it because everybody was doing it. So I did finally draw these mugs. It did satisfy the task. It wasn't quite the way I expected I would do it. But it worked, and this is the second part. So I put 8 of them in. Then we continue on. We're still in contours here. So these contours lasted quite a while. If we go back, contours, this is a bunch of pages in this book, and they really did fill space. And contour started here, week 42, and here says another week. Well, week 45. I guess I filled a lot of pages with contours and a lot of notes. These contours are everywhere. Again, portrait and something, a full body. They speak to each other. Cat. Still in the contours. Now here we're out of contour. We tell ourselves stories in order to live. Joan Didion. And this one, instructions for living a life. Pay attention, be astonished, tell about it. Mary Oliver. Finding the Lumberjanes series, that was such a great discovery during the pandemic. It was not on my initial list and it became a replacement and I loved them. Contours continue and look, our numbers have continued. I would have had no idea at the beginning that the numbers would grow like this. When I started writing those down every day, it was just something I could record from each day and then it became a thing. Every night I would look and check and write them down. Self-portrait. This is always the thread and the undercurrent. Some drawings, portraits and notes. Again, it varies. how I do it and what feels right in the moment. And sometimes there's a lot of space. It's not what you look at that matters, it's what you see, Thoreau. This, I did it by Zoom, but I tried a local drawing group that I've wanted to do in person. It was on my list to try and get up the nerve to go in person. And I joined them one day for a drawing group, and I felt really awkward, a little bit out of place, and they all were painters. But these are the things, there had been a theme that day, and these are the things I tried. After that, I didn't go back, partly because I started drawing with other people at the same time. But I wish I had gotten to know those people so that post-pandemic, I would be comfortable joining them. Still in the contours here. I know this is Mother's Day. It says that, but this is actually my mother and my grandmother. And I know that immediately from a photo. I know that that's the shape of that photo. And I'm really glad I did that. And again, me. And a hummingbird, really important in this whole thing. This one, I joined a different drawing group, a really big one online, and they set up a still life. And it wasn't interactive, like you couldn't talk, and only the moderators and maybe one or two other people were able to be heard. But everyone was able to draw from this still life. So I worked on this that day, and that's something I hadn't done before. I did this maybe 3 times with this group. Still in contour in part and half not. So, and again, I'm okay with layering things and just making things stick in or stick out wherever they go. And these quotes, lots of quotes, there was a real emphasis for me during this time on other people's words. And again, notes, and again, the numbers, and we all fit it in. Tell me a story. This is one of the ones that most does not look like me. I'm trying to see if I wrote the week of this one. Seems strange. Doesn't look like me at all. This was with that drawing group, the still life that they set up, and I added colored pencil to this. It's an experiment. Again, the layering, hands. I really would like to work some with hands. I really would love to have a whole collection of these cool bottles of different kinds to draw. I love trying to draw product labels and packaging, but I love the idea of these bottles. And again, I would like to shift into some gouache for that. Self-portrait. And then I had started drawing with a couple of other people online. And so in some cases, I was recording a podcast while I penciled a sketch. And then in some cases, I was also then doing the ink work while drawing with other people. This was during that drawing group. Again, the still life one I had picked up and started in another place and didn't get far before it ended. These are more like my regular full-on portraits. And again, this one's smeared. It says so hot, the ink smeared. It's smeared really badly. And these things disappoint me so, but you get over it. Recorded a recipe, something super simple that I make. Memorial Day. And a list, a contour out of the blue. Some notes about the birthday, which was happening. Another thing checked off the list. Lots of notes, little things filling in the space. And I was really wrapping up here because the birthday happened. And this final thing was the stack of books I had out from the library. Well, part of it, pandemic stack. These are in here because I pulled these out to look at them. And I so love these. If you haven't looked at that book, it's called, I think it's Bibliophile. I will link it down below. Jane Mount. Jane Mount is the author and the artist. And these are wonderful. These are postcards from that series, but they are wonderful. This is someone different, but this is a beautiful painting. So that is book 2. Different than book 1 in its own way, but the same. You probably feel the checking off of things a little differently here because it was a lot harder from this point, February 16th, from this point on, it was so much harder to check things off because I couldn't leave and do things the same, that so many things here, I just recorded how I solved them or did them. That shows me the end of the whole year and the 50 before 50 list. And I did manage the whole list in its own way. Some things came out different. There were some replacements, but I'm happy to have this journal. I think the next journal is even more exciting and better. I think my own comfort in my own format continues to grow. So I will be back with number 3 of that. If you missed number 1, I hope you go back and watch it. And I hope that you are keeping your own record and your own journal, that you do some kind of illustrated journaling or that you consider exploring it. I have Illustrate Your Week prompts that I put on Instagram. They're free. They're on the Creativity Matters podcast Instagram feed. And you could start at any time. I have them through the year. Last summer, I did a whole bunch of them, and I did daily ones. And then after that, I did weekly ones for a number of weeks. So there are a bunch of them if you want to go back and pick up. I have started doing them again. I took a few weeks off as iCAD got started, but I am back in it now because I missed it. So I will be posting those again, and I would love to have you join me. If you haven't checked out the podcast, please do. You can find it at creativitymatterspodcast.com. And I talk about creative life, creative habits and routines, art, books, different forms of inspiration and nudges to try and help you value your own creative life and help you find balance in that, especially if, like me, your creative life is in the margins. Your big life is here, your work life, your take care of everyone life, your, oh my gosh, I have so many responsibilities life, and you have this little margin of time that you have for creative stuff. And it sometimes, especially compared to maybe work, that creative margin is so important. And that's what I'm all about. And that's what the podcast is all about. And more, I'm about mindfulness, especially in your art, and how that can help you be more mindful in your life, and simplifying in certain ways, not feeling like you need to go buy stuff all the time, being happy with a sketchbook and filling it. That makes me happy. And there's more blank space in this one. It actually shocks me a little bit. I don't really usually do that. I think it really has a lot to do with the context of those months during 2020. And I think we have to give ourselves space for that. Things happened in whatever way they happened. I'm actually glad I continued daily drawing, daily documentation, illustrate your week, illustrate your journal, all those things. I'm glad I continued all that. So I hope maybe you'll give it a try. I would love to know more people who approach their daily work similar to the way I do it. Instead of just drawing a portrait that I could hang on a wall, putting something in a book, and it's going to end up with all kinds of stuff around it that doesn't make a lot of sense to other people, but becomes this cohesive whole for me. So that's important. It's an important process. I think journaling is important. And I love graphic novels and sketchnoting and drawing portraits. And so I throw them all together. And in doing that, I'm creating a record of my life. And it is an illustrated record of my life. And to me, that is one of the best discoveries that I've made. I don't know if it completely started with the 50 before 50 year, but I really dove in during that year and started consistently doing it and really made it a practice. I had done similar things in prior years, pages of one thing a day in graphic novel style. And I loved those things, but I didn't ever continue them consistently every day or every week over a long span of time. So I do think the 50 before 50 year hooked me in this process, and I am really glad. So thank you for watching. I hope you'll check out the podcast, and please, if you're interested, please subscribe. I could really use the follows, and I would love to have you join me here. Thanks.